We're live. We're good to go. Good morning, everyone. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about the delay in getting started today. We've had what I can only assume are technical glitches.
They were very, very technical glitches.
I am your host, Mitto, and this is the technical guy, James. So everything this morning is his responsibility. So yeah, currently I can't see myself on the screen, so I'm not quite sure where we're at.
Links since we've changed.
We're updating. A couple of things to go through today when Jay has finished linking.
Feel free to get started.
I'm trying. We got new tickets for the circuit. So for people to come down, you can now book a Saturday morning or a Saturday evening. The reason for this is because we have a couple of different groups of people on a Saturday. Saturday mornings, we have a lot of rear-wheel drive guys who are in and doing that from, well, opening around 10 o'clock up to about 5 or 6 o'clock, which is when people generally switch over to four-wheel drive for the evening. Now I can hear myself.
Very distracting.
That is very distracting. So yeah, basically that's why we've split that up. It just means that it costs you a little less to do what you're doing now, and there's a bit of a clearer switch over between the rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive guys, just to make it easier on both groups of drivers, really. Jay, anything to add to that?
No, that's it. The only thing to bear in mind is when you're booking it on the website, basically you need to add both to the cart, and it will look like it's going to cost you £20, but it'll actually discount it to $15 as you go through the checkout process, just because that's the only way we can get it to work.
Okay, that works. Righty ho. New. What else we got on the agenda? We got a new layout here at the circuit. We've moved some stuff around.
Distracting or confusing because we have a new layout and a new layout.
We have two new layouts. We have a new layout in the pit/shop area, and we have a new layout for the circuit. So again, recently we had Mizunaga from Japan over, and we always like to heed his advice. He's been in the industry a long time, so he's got a lot of expertise and can provide us with useful and helpful information. So from that, we have now jiggled things about a bit to allow you drivers more places to stand. So basically where we had VIP pits, anyone who's been here will understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't been here,
you should come.
You should come, yeah. But yeah, you won't know what the hell I'm talking about. But basically where we had VIP pits, the XL pits, the big pits right in front of our counter, we've now got rid of those and made it so that it's just kind of an open area where everyone can hang out and you can drive from there. And it's just made the place a lot easier to get around and a lot bigger. So yeah, that seems to be working out quite well so far. It also means that me and Jay, because of the way we've done it, we've got our own pits. Yay. So yeah, our stuff has literally exploded everywhere.
Our own pits that aren't full of Coke cans and stuff underneath.
And yeah, like, you know, chocolate bars and crisps and all the stuff that we have under it.
That just gets in the way, and it doesn't look like a lot, but it is a lot.
Makes a bigger mess. So yeah, we've done that as well. So I'm happy about that because I can just leave my junk in one place now.
Yeah, and it means that my stuff doesn't get moved every time we have to restart the fridge.
Yeah, which is nice. That's true. You know, Jay had like it's completely stupid and irrelevant, but Jay's got like a tower tub thing, you know, with slidey drawers. So that thing sits where all the Coke cans are, and it's been driving me crazy because every time we need to start the fridge, I have to move that.
I've had to have that because there wasn't any space anywhere else for my stuff.
I know, it's all right. Anyway, the other thing we've done based on Mizunaga's advice is we have increased the circuit size slightly. We've moved our judging booth, which has now become part of the shop counter. We've moved that off the circuit, and we've now expanded the circuit slightly. Although it didn't really take up that much room, but the difference it's made to the track is pretty surreal, to be honest.
Yeah, it did take up, what is it, like 6 foot, 6.5 foot, something like that?
A couple of meters square, in effect. But, you know, like what it's actually done for the circuit is really opened the thing up. Like the circuit's much bigger now.
Yeah, and there's much more room in general, and it's a bigger feeling and stuff. I don't know if it's something people would notice who haven't been here that often, but if you're a regular, it's quite apparent.
It's a big thing, yeah. I mean, it looks completely different from
I can't stop looking over in that corner because
that's what it was. It's like, oh, where's it gone? But yeah, that's that's improved things a great deal. And that was going back to when Mizunaga was here. You know, we were chatting with him about line and circuit design and all these sorts of things. As well as best we can with my moderate Japanese. Moderate, yeah. It's not. I'm not brilliant at Japanese, but I can communicate. You know what I mean? I've got enough to communicate. But anyway, so with his advice, we've kind of tweaked a couple of things out and almost gone back to basics. You know, having someone like Mizunaga over is good because it makes you sort of take a step back and reassess what you're doing. Because a lot of the time, like even with I know we've got a lot of questions on setup and tuning today. Even with that, you end up going in one direction and you're super focused in one direction, and then someone else will come along with something else, and suddenly you realize, oh God, like I completely forgot to try that, or there's a million other ways you can
get into habits, and some are good and some are bad.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of it. So that's having him over and having a driver here at such a high level and with so much skill in terms of setup and circuit design and everything really helps, because it helps us step back and reevaluate what we're doing. And of course the information we're getting is absolutely current because he's just come from Japan, where everything's happening right now, and the pace of change there is so fast, it's very difficult to keep up. So having him come over and go, this is what everyone's doing now, it just makes you go, oh, okay, and you can move forwards quite quickly. So that is kind of what's happened here. Anyway, that's
it's been nice changes this week. And
obviously we've expanded the shop so soon. All the shop will all sort of wrap around where we are. At the minute we got stuff behind us and stuff under the counters and a bit of stuff up there and blah blah blah. But it's going to go right the way around. Yeah, and we've got mountains of wheels and stuff. So we're going to try and get. I mean, there's quite a few out there, but I mean it doesn't even skim the surface. There's too many of the things. So
we gradually keep cutting our wheel display down and down and down because there's just too many other things to add. And now we're at the point where we've taken so much stuff off the shop display that actually we've kind of got less than half of what we stock out on display. So we just need a bit more room.
So basically, we've changed everything so we can put some wheels on display. Yeah, because we stole the room for the wheels. That works for me. Okay, so still on the Mizunaga topic, something we skimmed on last week, which is probably helpful. Someone did screenshot this.
But you couldn't read it because the quality was so bad. Actually, that's one thing. We are really struggling with quality at the moment with the video and audio, but it's kind of currently beyond our control because it's down to our piss poor internet connection that is the very best we can possibly get, thanks to BT and their lack of development in industrial areas. So you may find that next week we do this from our house or one of our houses as soon as we have.
It'll be yours because my internet's terrible.
My internet's amazing, so it'll be my house then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it may have to change just because we're currently limited from our internet connection. And
Jay got that rich man internet. That's because you're elite, man. It's because you love the internet. It has to be fast.
Impatient.
But yeah, so what the point was is basically let us know how the quality is.
We're doing our best. We know it's shit. We will make it better. Simple as that.
I don't know. It looks fine on our screen.
It looks amazing on our screen because we're seeing what.
I mean, if you could just give me a tan or something, that'd help. But
I can give you a beard.
Where's my beard? Apologies about my face. I had a moment where I decided I wasn't a man anymore and shaved my face off. That sounded so wrong. I can hear Mittesh. We got some guys in today. Mittesh is over here laughing at me.
I don't know how I do it. If I could be bothered today, I could give you a beard.
I was just going to say, is that thing where you put, like it comes out with like a little Viking ship and gives you a little beard and stuff? That'd be amazing. Can we do the whole thing like that?
Maybe.
Yeah, do too.
We can put a sunny background in as well.
Yeah, we definitely need that. Anyway, back to reality. This is Mizunaga's setup guide, and I'm going to go through this. So
it's to make things easier for people. You let it down, I'll take a photo and I'll fire it onto Facebook so everyone can actually read
it. Okay. Everybody watch with Facebook.
Oh, great. Doesn't like our lights. More technical issues.
Wait, because you were trying to do some funny. What was that? Piano?
Piano.
Is that what it said?
No, pano.
Pano? What's oh, panorama? Yeah. I don't need a panorama for that. It's very little.
So yeah, anyway, this will be up on Facebook in about 10 seconds. Although there's a delay, so it'll probably be there by the time you've even seen this.
Excuse me. I like your T-shirt, by the way, today. That's pretty cool. Rocking the NSX.
That's Import Bible. It's more good stuff.
Wait, did you have an NSX on last time?
I don't think so. FC probably.
Are you sure?
Probably.
We should check, because otherwise it's going to look like you've worn the same T-shirt for 2 weeks.
It's the second time.
I did have a blue jumper on. This is a different blue jumper. I remember that.
Yeah.
It's the same hat.
Right, that's now on there. Should be able to see that anyway.
Okay, so where's that on exactly?
It's on the Facebook comments.
It's on the Facebook comments for this Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. You can see that. But this was while I was in Italy with Mizunaga on the European Tetsujin, part of the Tetsujin tour. He all of a sudden remembered, I think it's when the jet lag had worn out, that he had a special sort of 10-step guide for getting your car set up when you go to a new circuit. And this is a way, this isn't like full on, this is, you know, it isn't every part of the setup. But it's when he goes to a new circuit, this is the process he goes through to make his car drive well, you know. And one of the things that always surprised me when we going around to different circuits with him is how quickly he can adapt to that circuit and be, well,
right, and not only that, but with somebody else's car, can make it work with 2 tweaks.
Yeah, exactly. That's his whole spring thing, isn't it? Like he's crazy for tweaking springs, which can make a massive difference in terms of grip. But that's, you know, that's another section, I guess. It's more in depth. But anyway, on this list, the first thing is you need to set your EPA 100%, and then gear your car in terms of FDR, so that when you initially push the trigger, you don't get any wheel spin before the car starts moving. So if you're pushing your trigger and you get wheel spin before you start to move, you're immediately wasting power from the rear wheels. You should be able to just creep the car from a standstill without wheel spin and without loss of traction. So that's kind of point one. Once you've done that, it's a case of adjusting the front springs. So choosing what spring you're going to use, and then basically tweaking them till you get the right feeling. Tweaking them in terms of ride height and preload, because obviously they're together on these. But the first one to look at is the front springs. And when you're adjusting the front springs, ignore everything apart from the feeling of the steering. So does the body angle and the steering angle timing match? You know, does it feel numb? Does it, you know, feel too grippy, or however, you know, literally the feeling.
It's probably worth mentioning at that point, if you've got adjustable damper caps, that's also when you'd be using that, wouldn't it? So you can, or would you do that later on? When you're doing the
I would say that later on, which is potentially in amongst the damper angles. First thing to do is to set the spring at a base level, in effect.
Yeah.
And then the second point would be to adjust the rear springs for traction. Traction in terms of how quickly the rear grip happens relative to the front grip. So when you set your steering feeling, you then want to set your rear traction so that your car can move laterally instead of just gripping and pushing itself. You know when your car comes out a corner and the nose sort of pulls out instead of holding a nice smooth angle, it goes like that, and that's like a high side, you call it. So if your car's doing high side, you know, like you probably want to drop the nose or something to that effect, or, you know, just get the feeling. But actually, the third point is the front damper angle, which effectively, if you are getting high side, you can knock the front dampers down, or you can move the lower part of the damper out a hole from the bottom, and that'll stop the high side, because high side's kind of a bit of a pain. Right.
Incidentally, when Mizunaga was here, that was the problem I've been having with my chassis. It was the opposite, that the front was too numb. Yeah. And I tried lots of things, but I tried a couple of things in combination, which kind of goes against the rule we always put in place. And it wasn't until Mizunaga had a drive and you realised that I just literally needed to move my front shocks and that was the only problem that I had with the whole car. But because I've done it really early in my setup process, I thought I had it nailed, and then I changed other stuff that made it go wrong effectively.
That's kind of the thing with Mizunaga, is he recognises problems so quickly. That's what gets me. It's not that we, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watching now, they can tune their chassis and they don't have problems doing that, but it's the speed that he does it. He just 2 laps, okay, he'll tweak one thing, another couple of laps, okay, it's this, and done. Like that for me is impressive, because it's so quick, When you're setting the front damper angle, you are setting up your steering and your handling for the most difficult corner on the track. That might be a fast corner, it might be a hairpin, whichever corner you need to put the most effort into driving is the one that you need to set your front damper angle up for. Okay, number 4 is a rear damper angle, and that is basically like I was saying before with the rear springs, you're just balancing out the front. So you're making it so that when you snap, all 4 wheels are balancing, you move laterally, and you're not getting any high side, you're not getting the front pulling out, it's not over rotating. You haven't got too much grip at the rear. Generally with damper angles, if you want more grip, you stand them up, and if you want less grip, you lay them down. So that's kind of how that works. It's not exactly true, but that's a reasonable kind of reference to work from. Okay, so actually the points 5 and 6 are again about your damper positions. Point 5 is the rear damper angle, which is moving the lower point of the damper. That'll do. That's got a damper on, or that one.
That's got a damper on.
We have a chassis with a damper on. So point 5 is adjusting this lower point of the damper here to where that's going to be on the arm. And what that's adjusting is the rolling speed of the chassis. So obviously as the chassis rolls, it compresses the spring. Can't really see on this because the suspension's rock hard. But it basically adjusts the speed at which the chassis is doing that. That's easy enough. And then again, the on the front, if you imagine that the rear actually is controlling the overall roll of the chassis, and then the front is controlling the roll on lock. So that's kind of how he's described it to me. So that's on lock roll.
I was reading the message.
Right. So basically, to reiterate, the rear sets the roll for the whole chassis.
Yeah.
The front sets the roll while you're on lock.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how he's put it to me. Next is the point 7, which is the rear squat / dive control.
Probably not the best one to show that on.
Yeah, because it's got a diffuser. Actually, give me the chassis with 1 damper. Okay, so under your rear toe straps, under this little red thing right next to the end of my finger, you can put spacers to raise that, and if you're really crazy, you can flip it around and lower it and do all stuff like that.
Incidentally, MSD makes some pretty helpful spacers that slot straight into the.
Yeah, we've got any around. They're cool.
Just behind you somewhere. But yeah, they're very helpful because they literally just slot in, and you don't need to remove the screw. You just need to loosen it off and slide them in. They're very helpful.
Oh, there you go. I'm diving, but it's easier to see the silver ones.
Yeah.
So these are 0.2 millimeter ones.
They also do 0.5 coloured ones.
Can you see those? The light's pain. So they do 0.2s and 0.5s?
Yeah, the 0.2s are only in silver. They're the earlier ones.
There you go. But yeah, they're super handy. Mizunaga recommends a maximum of 3 millimeters to add into that. I mean, you can try more. There's nothing stopping you. But he sort of says, around 3 millimeters is the maximum. And basically what it does is allow you to adjust I could do without a wheel being on here. But effectively, perfect.
Swap.
Thanks. So, if you can see the front strap there in black and the rear strap in gold, and what it allows you to do is actually adjust the entire rear subframe of the car, if you like. So you're adjusting the angle at which it attacks the ground. Basically, if you raise the rear, what you also do is increase the roll-on speed, which is when you lift off throttle and the car regains grip. If this is raised, the car will continue to push itself forward. If you do it the opposite and raise the front of this subframe, what will happen is as you lift off, the car will sink and try and stop itself. So you can create a little bit of roll-on, or you can create a little bit of drag from that. So yeah, that was 0.7. 0.8 is the same thing for the front. And basically what the front does is controls push understeer. What I'll point out as well, at this point, is actually we're still dealing with things that when you're setting up, like if we're going back to setting the front springs, people go, "No, it's push understeering, it's push understeering," but that doesn't matter till later in the tuning process. And this is the difficulty. It's
probably better to say it's not the be all and end all.
No, I mean literally when it says when it says set up the front springs, you are literally setting up the front springs. Everything else doesn't matter. All you're trying to recognize is one tiny point, which is difficult to learn. This takes a long time. So don't feel frustrated if it doesn't all work out right away, because like we do this near enough every day, and it's still quite a difficult process, and something
sometimes you'll miss something that's really obvious, but
you've got to put time into learning it. So front anti-dive, which is putting the shims up in the front here, and what that does is stops the push understeer. So if you overgrip the rear, or if on lock, that is some pretty weird lock. But if you're having trouble with push understeer, then you can eliminate that from the chassis by effectively doing the same thing and lifting the front. It's the same as reversing the angle of the back. It creates that drag and that resistance, so that can be very useful. So that was 0.8. 0.9 is the rear roll center. I'm going to revert back to your chassis for this one, because it's your other chassis, because it's an extreme example. You adjust your rear roll center with these arms here, and you can see here Jay has massively elevated this arm,
and on the knuckles on a triple X.
Yeah, you've also got adjustment on the knuckle out here, which I don't know if you maybe see a couple of the extra holes behind my finger. But yeah, that's your rear roll sensor adjustment. I mean, there's other factors to it. You can adjust on the knuckles, and we've got a lot of adjustment in the MSTs. But effectively, that's the simplest way of approaching it. So if everything else is static and already set, this is again what Mizunaga was saying was this is when you arrive to the circuit, you need to get settings. So that's the point of that. You can just make small adjustments to that rear roll center, and control the roll speed or control where your grip's coming from. 0.10, the final setting, is your Ackermann angle and your toe settings. With the Ackermann and the toe, Ackermann varies wildly depending on what circuit you're at, so there's no kind of one fixed solution for that. I
think people in the past have been fixated on having zero Ackermann and having corrected Ackermann and all this, and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. You should have what feels right, not the same as.
But it's feeling and realism as well. Like that's kind of the big thing is the realism and watching full size drifting and everything. Like it's quite easy to miss small detailed points of what the cars are doing. So basically with that, get your Ackermann set up, and then imagine toe is like the fine tuning. So if you've got a chassis where you've got like crazy toe out like this, then it's quite likely that there's an issue with your Ackermann setting, and that's why you're using so much toe to compensate for that. Ackermann is going to be generally within a reasonable range, you know, within 10% kind of thing. But then your toe can, you know, increase or decrease the lead wheel angle or the trailing wheel angle. So, you know, set your Ackermann and then set your toe as like a fine adjustment. Again, when you're coming out of a corner, if your car tends to pull the nose out, then that's an Ackermann / toe setting as well. But that's kind of the final point. The only other things to look at after that are your ESC and all the settings on your controllers. Unless you're at a particularly high level, your throttle curve should be linear and your steering curve should be linear as well. Yeah, but you know, make sure they're all linear before you start trying to set up your FDR and setting up your, you know, your EPAs and everything. Just make sure everything's at 0, so you're starting from a clean sheet every time. But that is the 10-step guide. Read it for yourselves. I'll do a blog on this at some point. Yeah, that's probably prettier, isn't it? But yeah, that's been really useful for me anyway, especially you know, with our course change. Obviously, you know, it's not just going to different surfaces; it's different courses require different settings. So, I mean, for me, you know, that's been useful.
Yeah,
and even if you're going through this guide, like through the 10 points, even if you know you only need a couple of the points, it's worth just starting at 0 again and working your way through. So technically there's 12 points, but you know, ESC doesn't count and Japan has 0. Everything starts at 0 instead of 1. So if you get in an elevator and push 0, it's the ground floor. Wait, no, it's not. 0 is the basement and 1 is the ground floor. I know, it's something weird like that. We have ground, don't we? In an elevator.
Yeah. Right. We moving on.
But anyway, yeah. So what we've got now, some Q&A.
Got some questions.
Some questions.
Let's get rid of that. Let's see where we're going to start with. Well, I suppose we'll start at the top. Alex Wilson's asked what's our general setup for triple XD running on our track here at Soul RC?
Silky.
Yeah.
That's not really an answer, is it?
Assuming it's rear motor, I think general consensus is generally stiffer at the rear.
Stiffer at the rear, and sort of quite conforming at the front, I suppose.
So ours are quite different. So let's work out what's common between the two. Let's work this bit out now.
Here's one I prepared earlier. So hold yours up and hit your Ackermann, hit your lock. We do it the same way.
I didn't realise we show you, John, till afterwards.
So it's not entirely dissimilar.
I think mine looks different because of the caster and stuff.
Do I have more camber on my?
Right, let's put them down.
Training wheel.
Work that bit out.
Stick your lock on. Look. Oh, so you have more KPI than I do?
No, I'm running very little, if not 0 KPI currently.
What do you want on the bottom?
It's more caster. That's what it is, Steve. I want to make more caster.
Ah.
I thought you've gone up from there.
I have.
Yeah, I thought you've gone up more.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'm on 23 degrees caster. You're probably on.
But generally, I mean,
12 maybe.
The rears are both stiff. The fronts are both soft. Mine's kind of like the rear of your chassis is super stiff, and the front's super soft, and mine's like medium
stiff,
hard, and medium soft. I mean, I guess the common denominators are the rear damper angles. We're both running on wide. We've both got the rear lower dampers as wide as possible, with considerable amount of angle on them. You're running a rear anti-roll bar, I'm not.
Run different CS as well, I think. For you on?
I guess actually, I mean, thinking about the most sort of common tuning point here is actually rear camber. If we're thinking about it,
yeah.
Rear camber, we don't really measure. We look at the contact patch.
Yeah, which incidentally also, I think ours is going to be very different because your tyres are more worn than mine.
Potentially, I mean, we could look at that right now. So I've recently changed the rear contact patch. Let's just even that out so it's easier to see.
A bit of check-in on the spot.
Actually, they're near as damn it the same.
Oh, really? I thought your tires were a lot more worn,
Well, they are
but they're worn at the same angle.
kind of. I think the camera on one of my wheels is actually out looking at it. But generally, we're running. We're both on a flat contact patch with about 2 degrees of change on roll.
I think mine's a little bit less than that. Last time I measured it wasn't maybe I've changed a few things since then, so it could be back up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, roughly between 1 and 2 degrees of change on camera.
The rear of my car is kind of set up to minimise the camber change, so that's part of the reason I have extended links. It's part of the reason I raise things. We've basically got ourselves in a position where we are where the backstage is consistent as possible on mine. That's kind of what we're going.
People
That just works. That's the hazards of
men with beards.
Doing a live broadcast when we're still open.
I'm jealous now. I shouldn't have shaved my beard. You see these boys?
I know, quite impressive.
I wish you could all see these beards.
But yeah, so the back of the car is pretty consistent and doesn't change too much. We've both got a little bit of weight added to the back, but talking 7 grams maybe on the diffuser.
It literally is 7 grams.
Yeah.
I run a little bit of weight on the rear lower arm, but
yeah, I don't. I used to, but I haven't run that for a while.
But anyway, I think the crux of that is rear camber.
Also, incidentally, one common thing for both of us is we both run shorties, and we mount them both to the back of the chassis. So we both run short batteries rather than full-size batteries, and they're shifted as far back as they can be. Possibly why we run such stiff setups as well on the rear.
Maybe because there's more.
Yeah, because there's less weight over the front, so the balance is further back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably the most common thing. He's also Alex has also asked, have we got any recommended drills for improving steer and smoothness? So to me, I think it's just a case of practicing and just keeping the mindset that you don't want to make an adjustment.
Here's an excuse to show off my new pink controller. We'll wrap up next. Actually, yes, this one is from Mizunaga again. When I started, he basically said, with your steering, 1 time. So effectively, when you come to a corner, you put your steering on whatever lock you need, and then it stays there. You do not move your hand until you get to the next corner, and you need to change angle, at which point you do that. So basically, once you get into a drift, don't adjust with your steering hand. Fix your hand, and then do everything with the throttle. So you know whether you need to be on throttle or braking or whatever it is. Just fix your steering, and that's kind of the point. If there's any sort of flapping of the wheels like this, you're not going to learn anything. Like, well, you will. You know, you'll learn some control, but that will
bad habits.
Yeah, it's learning a bad habit. That will be how you control the car. So if you literally put it on lock and hold your wheels where they are and do everything else as you would in a real car with your right foot or with your trigger finger.
Again, as you would with a real car, when you reach the end of the corner, if you're not transitioning, you wind the lock off slowly.
Yeah,
it's not close.
Yeah,
and then that's going for realism, which generally is what everyone's going for these days. It's what we look for in our.
That's what we're doing. Yeah.
This screen's gone off. There was also a related question to that, which I will find out now. Somebody asked about a carpet setup for the FXX DS, and essentially, standard settings are kind of good, aren't they?
What did I do? I adjusted all I did was play with the front Ackermann and set the rear camber effectively the same as the 4-wheel drives. And I think I added 2 mil to the front scrub radius on the top of the knuckle. And that was literally it. And I was, I wasn't faster than anyone, but I was holding pace, and that was with a 21.5 turn motor, so I was pretty impressed with that. What
you're going for with 4-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars is the same these days. So the settings are very similar. I think obviously the balance of the chassis will vary, and on the FXXD, it's obviously front motor, but it's sort of mid-front motor, since the motor's between the front wheels rather than over the front. So you don't have to be too extreme with the.
It's like a real car, isn't it? It's between the suspension pickup points.
Yeah, it's just you don't have to be too aggressive with the dampers or anything. I don't think. I think when when they first arrived, everyone tended to have a bit too thick damper oil and things like that, but everyone's backed it off a little bit now, and as everyone's starting to understand it a bit better. A couple of guys that come down here on a regular basis, like Mark Bennett, have got his properly dialed, and he's done a lot of work on his, but I think to get it to that level, you know, it's not essential. That's not a base setup. That's a really advanced setup.
As well, something that came again from Mizunaga coming over is because our course we have 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, and they're often driving together, which is, you know, it's fine. There's no real problem with that. You know, everyone down here is quite sort of respectful of each other, really. So, you know, they don't go ramming anyone off the track. But what it means is that the rear-wheel drives have been solely focused on picking up speed. So their cars are all, you know, have been set up for quite shallow, fast angles. Now it's kind of getting to the point where when Mizunaga's come over and they saw his style, which was adding in small details of real-life drifting. So in a real car, you know, you're on lock, you're drifting, and before you change direction, actually what you do is you add a little counter and a little angle and compress the rear spring on this side, so you can pop out of that. So it gives you a bit of momentum to snap and change direction. Whereas, you know, what's typically been happening is almost from here just going, you know, without that little snap movement. So the guys here now are tuning that little snapping movement into their cars. And it just creates that little bit more of the real drift look, you know, where it looks like you've got a rubber tire and it's just digging in, just snapping out. But, you know, that's quite cool because that, you know, since he's been here, the guys here have picked it up so quickly, and that's, you know, I love how fast, you know, everything like that happens. You know, people just, oh, there's something new, you know, and they just keep going with it.
But they always, they'll move on to the new thing, but they'll retain the good bits of the previous.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not
abandoning it and moving on.
Yeah, we both we both did synchronized diving there.
I'm sliding off my chair.
So next question.
Next question. Well, somebody's asked about the cons of de-anodizing.
The cons of de-anodizing. Well,
there are potentially many. There are. If you do it right, it kind of just works. But de-anodizing can cause problems with tolerances. It can cause.
That's the main issue, really. Is actually. It's if you de-anodize things, you are effectively, you know, for those who don't understand it, anodizing is a coating on the metal. So what that coating has a thickness to it. You know, it's a certain, you know, distance between the outside of the coating and the inside of the metal, and then the bit of metal. But basically, if you remove the anodizing, you're removing some of the thickness of that part. So, for example, if your bearing pushes in and it's very tight, it can be that that bearing will then be loose. So, you know, it might seem fine,
and they might seem very, very small differences, but those differences make a difference. You know, if you're talking about,
I mean, that'll knacker up your bearings.
Yeah, the difference between, you know, if your bearings aren't seated properly on your rear diff, for example, when you accelerate, you could get some kick, you could get some movement.
Exactly, which damages other parts.
Yeah, it can pass along, but it'll also remove the smoothness from the chassis and remove any finesse that the chassis has, and it just won't feel right. It's not something that we've been warned off by some people that have done it themselves. There are people that have successfully done it, and it's kind of fine to have something re-anodized. It's not a problem. But you kind of need to know the thickness of the original anodized coating so you can match it, and you also need a good anodizing company that do the work for you.
That's kind of it, isn't it? You know, if you're
and also make it consistent across the whole batch. You don't want one part that's got thicker coating and one part that's got thinner coating, because not only does it then have the tolerance issue, it won't be the same color. It's a fine line. It's not impossible. It's just it's not for beginners. It's not something that you should do if it's your only chassis and you know you're pushing your budget, because you could end up really cocking things up and needing to start again.
I think it's one of those things. If you're going to do it, you need to speak to experts. Yeah, quite a high-end company that can measure the tolerances. It's something that you can do and is, you know, can be really cool, but just be careful with it, because, you know, although short term it might not seem like it makes a difference, long term it really can. Yeah.
Okay. Where am I going to go next? We've also been asked, I think, Luke Pettigrew asked if we're going to be stocking more brands, bodies, wheels, etc. And yes, is the short answer. We want to stock everything. Is the honest answer. The only thing that stops us doing that is budget and cash flow. So it's one of those things for us where, when we think that we can sell something in a reasonable amount of time, we'll absolutely stock those products. It's things for us like, we're Wrap Up Next dealers. We'd absolutely love to have FIDs sat on the shelf, but unfortunately there's not enough demand for them. So for us to have 10 FIDs sat on the shelf, if they're going to sit there for 3 months, that means we then can't afford something else that people need more frequently.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful with what we order, and unfortunately it's a very difficult game that occasionally, we make slight mistakes with, but we generally try and keep everything in stock that we can. But unfortunately, the problem with RC drifting is everybody wants stuff that nobody else has got. Everyone wants something unique and different. So that's why there's so many different variations in colour and size and offset. And
that's again why we want so much stuff in as well. So you can pick and choose. Because at the end of the day, the reason we started this whole thing is because it really sucked trying to get hold of parts. We were trying to buy overdose bits and wrap up bits and MSTs and blah, 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 and we got to a point where we were sick of it, and we're like, well, this is driving me crazy. Why don't we just start a business that removes that problem?
Definitely.
So that's why we're here, is because we're enthusiasts.
We do kind of have a rule that may be misleading, in that we don't stock rubbish. We won't ever stock a product that we don't think is any good. So you may think that we're not stocking something because it's not up to par, but it's not necessarily the case. It's just, we're a business. We have to grow at a reasonable rate, or we won't last. Simple as that, really.
5 kids to feed.
I think that kind of answers that question. If there's ever anything in particular that you guys want, if you contact us and just let us know that you want it, we can see what we can do. Obviously, one person asking for a product, that means we've got to sign up for an account with a new distributor or a new supplier. Is probably not going to happen. But if 10 people are telling us they want the same sort of things, then that's a bit different.
Yeah. This is actually there was a question from Rory about a thingy box, isn't there? What are they called? A suggestion box.
Yeah.
And again, that's something. We're not massive, like we're 2 dudes, and most of you know us. If you do have suggestions or there's bits you want to see us do, walk up and tell us, or send us an email.
It's probably best to do it when we're not busy and trying to serve other people, or
doing a live stream
in a really sort of public way. But as long as you're sort of respectful and you just put across your opinion, we'll listen.
Yeah.
And if we agree, the thing I think people don't realise is we put a lot more thought into every little decision that we make than you may realise. As moving the judging box has been something we've thought about for a while, and we've waited till we've known exactly what we're going to do, and so everything can work before we've done it. There are lots of things we have in the works that will be changing over the next 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we have to do things at a staggered rate for other reasons, to fit in with other projects and to fit in with other elements that have to come in. For example, extending the shop. Well, there's no point in extending the shop until we're going to be stocking more products to fill it, because a lot of the products we already have in stock aren't really desirable items, and replacement plastic bulkheads and things you don't really need to see. We don't sell that often, so we'd rather put something cool out there from another brand that we don't currently stock. Hence the reason we're doing it now, because we're hoping to be expanding our stocking lines fairly soon.
And no, we're not telling you what they are.
But that will come at a later date. Trying to get back to where it was.
I like that there's a lot of questions this week. This is cool.
There is. What was I? That's the one thing that's problem with this. When you get those questions, you've got to find your spot.
How long? There's no timer on this thing.
We've got about 25 minutes left. Something like that, 20, 25 minutes. Rory's also asked about setups for rear-wheel drive cars and how they should look and feel. I think the reason Rory's asking this is because we've marked him down previously in competitions for the look of his car. Certain people with their settings and with their driving style can sometimes make their rear-wheel drive car sort of exaggerate movements, would you say, and become that they look unnatural. And all we're looking for in competitions in terms of the look and style of a car is they look real. And when you've got, I'm not talking about Rory's car, but you get some people whose cars they crab. They don't
sat on full count again. It doesn't look right.
It doesn't look right. They also may just a lot of the time rear-wheel drive cars, when people have added weight to them and things, the front wheels are steering with loads of grip, and the back is effectively just floating and following the car around, and it's not how it works on a full-size car. Full-size car is being driven and powered by the rear wheels. And obviously, it's the same on a rear-wheel drive car. It's being powered, but it's balanced,
and it's got, like, it's the point I was saying before about the adding a little angle and snap back. Like, there's a lot of little details that, because you become so focused on tuning one way, you miss other details. So, it's good to watch. I mean, actually, watching D1 cars now is good, because the D1 cars are set with so much body roll and so much dynamic movement. It's actually for us as RC guys, obviously we're used to looking at like 0.5 millimeter, 1 millimeter movements. So when you watch a real car, you can really see exaggerated movements. So it's kind of worth watching D1, D1 Street Legal, those types of competitions where actually, I know in Formula D, the speed of your body roll doesn't count for anything, but in D1 it does. So you can see the difference in the driving level. And if you watch Formula D and you watch Drift All Stars and BDC and D1 Street Legal and D1 all back to back, you'll notice the level of detail through to D1. D1 is such a fine level of detail, and a lot of the time, you kind of watch things like, why did he win? I don't get that. And it's because the judges have asked for something really specific.
I mean, that's something you get in RC as well. That's something we've had here a few times lately.
People not understanding, a judge's decision, when actually, we're looking for a very tiny detail, and
there's also,
that's hard to see, especially when you're driving.
There's also maybe 20 or 30 elements that we're looking for, and somebody may notice one of those elements and assume that's the deciding factor, but actually the other elements counterbalance it and count for more.
It's at a point now where we just assume that your speed, line, and angle should be correct. And if they're not, then if you're losing out there, you're not even in the region to be in the eighth, like 80 points out of 100. If your speed, line, and angle aren't absolutely bang on, then you're not going to score above 80. Like, it's practically impossible. The last 20 points are all technique based, which make it incredibly difficult, but also push a level. We're not here to make everybody feel happy. I've got 100 points. I'm amazing. We're here to realistically train people to be better drivers. That's what we want. We don't want to just go, oh, well, this is European style, or this is English style, or this is that. We want drivers to be bang on. We want we want to have international events, and for drivers from our circuit, not just from England, anyone who comes here, we want those drivers to do well. So we have competitions in that manner, and we make it so difficult because it's realistic on a world level. You go to Japan, they won't sort of drive not quite as good, so you feel better about yourself. They'll hammer you, So that's kind of the point of that.
Next question, I think, is from
Dick Fisher, everybody.
From Tristan. He's asked what's the best budget drift to RTR. That's an easy one, because it's the one that we choose to sell.
Should we get the box down?
Go on.
There's one there.
Can you reach?
You get it.
Should be nice and easy. Present for you.
Thanks, buddy. What is it?
Supra.
A Supra.
Yeah, we
that is the best.
It's part of the reason we started stocking MSD was because the budget options were so much better than everything else, and to be perfectly honest, nobody else has come along with anything since the MSO1D came out that even touches it for me.
Dick Fisher, did you start with one of these? You started with an RTR, didn't you?
Pro one.
A Pro you started with?
S, yeah, you started with an S.
So it's not worth asking him then.
No. But
it's going to drag you on camera.
Yeah, so that kind of that's what works for us. I think it's got all the adjustability you need. It's got the balance, and it's designed to drift. And essentially, it comes with everything you need in the box. You know, it's counter steer, it's got one way. It suits the style that we're going for.
But slightly subversive. If you've got friends and you're trying to get them into RC drifting, yes, please buy an MSD 01, MS01D RTR, one of these anyway. But if you've got an old Tamiya laying around, you got an old HPI, whatever you've got, that you can literally put a controller in your friend's hand and say, try this.
Yeah.
Get them to do it. You know, we all want more people drifting because it's more fun. You know, more people drifting means more circuits, bigger products. Shops, more products. So, you know, if you're trying to get people into it and you've got a spare chassis laying around, even if, you know, it's not a drift chassis, if they've got slippy tires on and they can have fun with it, put the controller in their hand, say, try this, get involved. You know what I mean?
It may be that
once they're involved, say, okay, well, now you're doing it, go and get something made for drifting. And
the only thing, or the stipulation I'd add to that would be if you're giving somebody something like an old Tamiya or an old HPI or something, and it does have limitations, make them aware that they're not going to be able to do the same as you if you've got a top of the range chassis.
Yeah.
You know, it can be very frustrating if you think you're on a level playing field and you should be able to get closer and you should be able to keep up, or you know, if you're drifting on 2.1 counter steer and you're handing your friend a 50/50 car, you need to sort of explain to them that they're not the same and there are limitations, and that's why it's a good thing to move to a chassis that's kind of designed to do it.
Absolutely. Do you want to put that back?
I just put it to the side.
I'm still short. Nothing changed since you got it off the shelf.
The next question is from Jamie Fisher, who must have asked this last night because
Dick Fisher.
He's asked.
He sat there.
Who's your biggest influence in the RC drifting back in the beginning and today? I don't know about the back in the beginning for me.
I know mine.
Go on then.
Mine is Tsuyoshi Suzuka because obviously you know I've done real drifting for a long time, and I started real drifting. I was watching Suzuka on, you know, option videos and Drift Tengoku and you know, all these sort of, you know, seeing pictures online and everything. And he was like, you know, superhero D1 driver. So, you know, went out to Japan, became sort of friendly with him. You know, he's not my best mate or anything, but he knows who I am and I can call him up and say, all right, buddy, how's it going, you know? But, like, because he was such a, he is such a high level with drifting, for me to go back there and see him doing RC drifting sort of made it okay. Like, because obviously there's the whole RC stigma with, RC's for geeks, you know? But actually seeing him doing it, yeah, this is super fun. Like, I'm just, you know, it's just another drift thing to do. If you're a drifter, you drift a car and you drift RC and you just do drift things, you know? So for him to be doing RC drifting and at such a high level, you know, he's widely recognized as being like one of the you know,
well,
within
consistently
the D1
for
drivers.
the last many years as well.
Yeah, he's one of the best at doing it. Him and Vertex, Weno from Vertex. I nearly called him Vertex from Weno, but that wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, you know, that was a super big influence for me because it was like, wow, you know, someone who I really look up to thinks this is cool. So maybe I've got to give it a shot. I think that was kind of the same when Phil Morrison was doing RC drifting as well. And the whole reason Driftworks got involved because it was like, you know, someone like Tezuka's doing it. Oh, it's okay, you know, like,
well, exactly,
it's fine, like that's acceptable because he was one of our peers.
I'm trying to think I'm trying to remember back who was influencing me. It's kind of funny because I'm struggling to remember that far back. It's I was thinking it's probably actually going to be one of the UK guys because I wasn't looking too much to Japan. I was looking at what's accessible in front of me and what I can actually have. So it's probably going to be someone like Tungsi because he actually knew what he was talking about and saved me a lot of time going down the wrong route.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
And Tungsi, Matt,
and gave me lots of spares.
Well, he's
my old touring car.
He's got so much experience with racing and everything, hasn't he? He just knows setup. He knows, you know, what to do to make your car work effectively.
And
so he
glitches
really
and stuff
helped us a lot.
I remember one of the things I struggled with to start with is I bought a a brand that's not going to be named, ESC, that just glitched constantly. And every time I used the car, I had a problem or something cut out. Or
is that when your nickname was Kill Switch?
Yeah, that was one of them.
Every time his car got a bump, the switch, you just go and turn his car off.
Which was annoying
So
because you had to go on track to turn it back on.
Codename Kill Switch. That was hilarious.
That was very annoying. Second part of that question, which is weird because he sat just there, is where would you like to see the UK drift scene in the future? Which to me is quite easy. With more tracks, more people doing it, higher standards, less people taking photos when we're doing a webcam thing.
We already answered this question, dummy.
Yeah, but for me, I really want to see more tracks. I want to see more people doing it. I want to see different styles in different areas. You know, there's a bunch of guys doing this up north. It'd be good if they have their own style, and the guys down south have a slightly different style. It's fun to mix and that kind of thing.
Well, technically, since I'm Scouts, we are down south. We are the down south guys right now.
Bang in the middle. Next question from Anthony is, do you see CS becoming obsolete in favour of rear-wheel drive? I think obsolete's the wrong word. I think the future is definitely with rear-wheel drive because it's more natural, and as technology improves and chassis become more realistic looking when they're driving, it's naturally going to be the way that people want to go. I think four-wheel drive will be there for a long time because there's a lot of people that will be coming in with converted touring cars, with old drift chassis. You know, you can convert four-wheel drive cars to be rear-wheel drive, but they just generally don't work the same.
I kind of see it like a progression. Like you start at 50-50, and you do that for a while, and you put in a bit of counter steer, then you go more counter steer, then you become very technique focused, then you become setup focused. And I think it's just a progression. It's only a matter of time before you go, okay, well, I've done all of that, and I've learned up to that point. I've got all my technique, I've got all my settings, I've got all that stuff. Now I need something new. Okay, rear-wheel drive. You know, in Japan now it's kind of 50-50 between CS cars and rear-wheel drive cars. I think that's because the level there is generally very high anyway. So it's at a point where all of these guys have learned so much and like, okay, well, you know, this is like starting at ground zero again, and you can move on from there. I think that's going to take a bit longer.
For me, I think it's slightly different. I think it won't be long till there'll be rear-wheel drive ready to run, beginner chassis available that people will jump straight onto, and I think that's more of a route it will take. But yeah, generally I think CS will keep going for a good while in whichever form it is, but rear-wheel drive will become the sort of elite, I think, fairly soon. To be honest, I expected it to have already happened, but I think the UK and Europe have been very slow to take up on rear-wheel drive chassis, apart from a few that sort of pioneered it and championed it. Generally, it's only with the FXXS that's been cheap enough that people will take a gamble to see if they like it before actually sort of.
Well, I like mine. I drove Dick Fisher over there again in Mitto, like they're from FLD, and the other guy who's not from FLD, well, he is from FLD, but he's not here today, is Carter, and I had to go to Carter's,
Hey, Carter.
Hey Carter, in work, unlucky, oh wait, I'm in work, damn it, yeah, so I had to go with his car, just literally like I did two laps, and just like 2 laps, 3 laps, I was like, okay, I'll buy one, I just went and bought it straight away, and Dick Fisher, you have a rear-wheel drive. You got it with you?
No, I got it a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Great example. Is that why he walked away?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got embarrassed.
Oh, well. Next question.
That's because he's not good enough yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dick Fisher sucks.
Next question from Taj. What do you guys think about the great amount of new international scale events in Europe? Like it, or is it too much?
It's great.
I think it's ace. It's wicked.
Great events are great.
Yeah. The only problem with that is I need people to pay for us to travel to them all.
Yeah. Sponsors, please.
Sponsors. Yeah, it'd be really nice if I could go to all the events. We're planning to do a few of them next year. We obviously will go back to the Euros like we do every year, and I think we're planning to go out to Norway for the event in February. I think it is. There's a few sort of deciding factors with that for us, which is why we haven't signed up to it yet. But we're aiming to, and we want to. It's just we have to make sure that everything can fit into place. He's also asked, what would your ideal international or European series look like? I think an international series is tricky. European isn't impossible, but a full-on international series, the expenses are far too high for the level that's involved at the moment. The only way it would work for me is if there's big sponsors on board. and there was sort of real money involved with sponsorship. So, you know, for me to go out to
sponsors, please.
for me to go out to Asia to go and just compete for a week, you know, it still costs a couple of £1,000 by the time you've paid for the flights and you paid for a hotel, even if you get deals, plus some food and things. And to do that once a year is beyond most people's means, let alone to do it several times for a series. I think a European series isn't that impossible because the travel costs are a lot lower. The problem with that is the organisation has to be, I think, higher than it has been for any event that I'm aware of. You know, when you're organising an event, information has to be available a long time in advance. If somebody's committing to travel to an unknown foreign country that they've not been to before, they need to feel comfortable, they need to feel safe, they need to feel like they know exactly where they need to be, in which city, when they need to be there, where they park their car, you know, all this information.
Hotels are,
all this information. They need deals with the local hotels. All this information is key. If it's not available, I mean, it's the reason I think you see not that many people traveling for international events is because any confusion, anything that's unknown, especially if you don't speak the language in that country, it's unnerving for a lot of people. Some people don't care and it doesn't matter to them, but for some people, it's committing to spend money, maybe have some problems, maybe get lost, maybe end up with some issues, or, you know, it's just not going to happen. You know, somebody needs to take care of everything, like Michelle does with the Euros. It's at Centre Parks between these dates and these dates. Here's the form. You send it to this email address. You just need to get yourself there, and you're okay. Everything's taken care of. It's easy. That's why so many people travel to the Euros, because
we just need a place with less bugs now for next year.
Less bugs and maybe more air conditioning units.
Yeah, less bugs, more aircon.
Yeah.
Please, Michelle.
He's also got a follow-up question, which is this going to be a regular thing, and have we thought about having guests on the stream? Yes.
Yes, and yes.
And yes, it is. As you may be able to tell from today, we struggle quite a lot with the technology side of things, partly because we're new to this and partly because we're very limited by our internet connection. So we literally, the quality you're seeing right now is the best we can possibly get. I spent hours getting the best possible setup we can. When we can get past these problems, then we can actually look into doing
hours. I'm pretty sure it was like 20 minutes.
Before you arrived, is all I'm going to say. Before you arrived. But yeah, essentially we will be doing more of these, and we will be having guests. It's right now it's easier for us if somebody could be sat just here, because the technology is the problem. But yeah. Next question. Luke's asked, what are your thoughts on body shell competitions to increase the work people put into their bodies? No prizes are necessary. Just a post showing the shell on the Soul RC page. We're into that. The problem is from a sort of content provider's point of view, it's quite slow moving. People don't do an amazing body once a month; they do an amazing body once a year. If there's amazing bodies on display constantly, then we will do what we can to promote them. Unfortunately, we've got a lot on our plate, and for us, our focus is more on the driving at the moment.
I got to be honest, body contests for me are, I don't know. It's a bit like saying, here's an example. Here's an example.
This is going to be a weird example.
It is going to be a weird example. Do you prefer buttons or do you prefer dairy milks? That's a body shell contest for me. They're both chocolate. They both taste good. When they've been through you, they both end up the same. What, was that too much? But the point is like, you know, like that's my body shell. I like it. I think it's cool. That's his body shell. He likes it. He thinks it's cool. But if I told him it sucked because it's not the one I like, then
which you normally do, and I normally do.
But who's right? You know what I mean? It's a personal thing. So a body shell contest.
I agree, but there's
detail, yeah, and sure you can appreciate the skill that goes in, but actually, effectively, like I look at a body, and the first thing that I see is the style. It's like, do I like that style or don't I like that style? And that's a personal thing. It's a subjective thing.
And even to the point where you can have an amazing body, but if it sits wrong on the car, it looks
someone could have put 10 years into making the most perfect body shell that's ever existed, and you're looking and go, God damn, that's ugly. You know? Do you know what I mean? Like you could. I know, realistically, you could.
But, for me, it's a time thing. I think the competition is kind of it could be seen as a bit unfair anyway, because there's some people that have a lot of time to put into bodies, and there's other people and money, and there's a lot of people that don't have time or money.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'd rather just show them all off him without a competition element of it. You know, I think if I could have the same as we've done with the wall of bodies here.
It's super PC. You're all beautiful.
No, it's not. There's some hideous bodies, but for me, I just don't think you can judge based on appearance alone. The fat ones are also fun.
Everything I said is now gone. You just killed it. That's a whole new level. Are there any kids watching this?
Moving on. Rory's asked, how are the settings on the Tau 2? Oh, sorry. How the settings on the Tau 2 affect the car? The Tau 2 enables a bunch of new options. If you haven't checked out the post I did on our blog, go and take a look now because it basically shows. Here you go.
Find the Tau 2.
Just there. Yeah, essentially it's got more options, but there's also more resolution. I'm not even going to look at you, dickhead. But yeah, the Tau 2 is ace. We will have them in stock as soon as we possibly can. And so it's just more refinement is the short answer. There's more refinement, there's more resolution. You can just be more accurate with everything. And there's a few other options that let you just, the way the boost kicks in, you've got a start point and you've got an end point now. You've got the rev limiter, which again, I don't want to see people just trying to chase settings that let them hit the rev limiter because it might sound cool, but it's a serious sort of safety and protective thing that's not going to do your motor much good if you constantly bounce off the limiter.
I think it looks like a Game Boy or something.
It looks like an iPod. It looks like a sort of first gen iPod.
Yeah.
Got the black on it.
I mean,
it's got the same jog wheel thing anyway.
It's got a headphone socket.
Next question. I'm going to have to skip a few now because we're starting to run out of time. We've already mentioned that. Roy just asked for more in-depth discussion, I guess, about the design on tracks and lines in competition.
That is a whole.
Yeah, that's probably going to be for another one. We'll maybe cover that next week when we've got a bit more time.
We have already got a video on YouTube, basically describing how to build a circuit. It's
not. It doesn't really go that much into
super
lines
in depth,
and
but yeah, I mean.
Akhtar, who asked a few questions last week, has asked again.
Akhtar, thanks for coming back.
Could you guys talk about steering geometry and its importance? Images would be helpful, which with this connection is probably not going to happen. And also shock absorbers, oil springs, and angle of fitment and importance of each. I think quite an in-depth thing.
That is massive, and I think that actually just goes back to Mizunaga's 10-step guide again. Follow the 10-step guide, and basically all these things are, we can give you a description on one point, or we can, if you're here, you give us your car, we can drive it and go, oh, we'll change this, this, and this, and sort it out. But actually, the reality of it is most of the time we won't just pick up your car and tune it for you. At least I won't. I'm quite mean about this point. What I will do is I will give you a suggestion, and I will let you run with that suggestion, because then you'll learn something and you'll learn to adapt it and tune for yourself. There's no one fixed set way of doing things. You've got to kind of go through it and learn for yourself, and that's kind of the key to that, really. I'd say. Yeah, definitely.
It's massively important that you don't just sort of overlook the basics, really. I think it's very important that people learn for themselves. It's too easy to just take somebody else's settings, and it's something I wrote about when I posted those Tau settings up on the blog. I don't want people to just look at my Tau settings and copy them. It's
using them as a rough.
Yeah, it's just this is what I do.
Yeah.
You can.
Oh, look, he's done that. I'll try this.
Yeah, exactly. If you've not thought about running turbo or boost because you thought it was no good for drifting, but you see that I am, fair enough, give it a try. But don't just put my settings in and copy them like for like. I've already had a couple of people actually tell me that they're using my settings now, and it's like it seems a bit weird that they haven't just.
Well, because those settings are based on
my chassis.
They're based on your FDR, your chassis, this surface.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of specific to here, and partially specific to his driving,
Yeah, definitely.
So, what was the other point of that? Oh, damper oils he asked about as well, didn't he?
Yes.
Damper oils, generally for what we're doing, anything between 100 and 500. I've never gone more than that.
I have gone.
Well, I've tested.
Yeah,
more,
I was going to say I've tested it,
yeah.
and for a while I did run, I think around 70 weight, which is around there. In my FXX on the front, but it didn't last too long. It lasted longer than it probably should, but not that long.
Nobody likes rebuilding dampers. That's the reality of that.
Yeah.
I do like 12 dampers all at once. A bunch of dampers. I just do them all in a range, so they're all the same, all with different oils in that you can test. So it's super good. You know, we do the damper packs. You can just see them down here. It's worth having like 2-3 sets of dampers, like however many you can afford, and then like literally that will make your tuning life so much easier. You can just go pop, 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 and change them super quickly and work out what things do. That's the key to everything, really. It's just you're working out what things do.
For me, when you're doing settings, particularly steering settings and things, it pays to really sort of take it at a basic level and look at the chassis, put the settings on the car, look at the chassis, look at the contact patch with the tyre, look at the way the steering behaves across the lock, look at the bump steer that's on there, just actually look at what's happening on the chassis. Don't just do something and then drive it. Actually, pay attention to what it's changing, what else is going to be affected, and use some common sense. The more tyre contact patch you have, the more grip there's going to be on the front end. For the most part, these sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily mean you want all that grip. If you're trying to lose some grip, then make it so there's less. It's as simple as that.
The other thing is when you're tuning as well, only do change one thing, do a couple of laps, and then change another thing.
It's very
and if you change something that makes it worse, change it back, and then do another couple of laps as reference.
Yeah,
but just 2 laps, change. 2 laps, change.
I made that mistake with my chassis. It took me ages. In actual fact, it took me until Mizunaga drove it to identify what the problem I'd introduced. But I think what we're going to probably make is the last question for this week is from Luke again about competition. He said, could we get more explanation on judging during the competition? Yes is the short answer. We've got lots of plans for the competition. We're going to make a lot of changes for the new year. We're probably going to see out this year without changing too much because we've got a championship in place, and anybody who attended early rounds but not later rounds, we don't want them to be at a disadvantage or anything like that. So we'll probably wait until the new year. There are going to be some pretty big changes. We're never arrogant enough to think that we've got perfect competition. We're aware that things should be changed and updated, and we want it to be as good as we possibly can make it. So for the best part, we will always introduce stuff that we think will improve it. Not everyone's going to like the changes, but they're what we think need to be done, and generally we hope that it'll be for the best.
We hope we've got it right. We're trying.
I think that's about kind of wraps things up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Are there any other?
Not that I can find very easily.
Just quick ones. Can we do yes or no answers on any of these?
I don't think so. I don't think we've got anything that's a short one left, to be honest. But yeah, as usual, generally subscribe to us if you want to see more videos from us. If you've got any videos,
and favorite this thing.
if you've got more, if there's any particular videos you'd like to actually see, let us know. Gives us, helps us to have some guidance as to what you actually want to see, rather than just making stuff we think people would want to see. But other than that, just like and share and favorite and all that sort of stuff helps us out a lot. And we'll probably see you next week at some time, hopefully a bit earlier with less internet connection, so maybe a different background.
Yeah, hopefully more quality.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and thanks for asking questions and being interested and involved. Give us some feedback. That would be amazing.
Yes.
And thanks to everyone who's at the circuit today.
Who's behaved very well.
Mitesh hasn't sworn or been racist at all. I'm really proud of him. And we'll close up by showing you those guys. And then we're going to go.
So hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I don't know. It goes backwards. It doesn't point the right way. When I go left, it goes right. When I go right, it goes left. This is confusing as hell. So that's where's my finger? That's Meatfish, and that's JR. They're FLD, and these are new guys. Hi, new guys, and these are beard guys at this end. These guys have nice beards. They can come again, and in a minute when the camera goes off, I'm going to stroke those beards. Maybe we should do it on camera.
Anyway,
Okay,
bye for
thanks.
now. Cheers.
Bye.